UFC Kansas City was a very good fight card, and we had a lot of questions answered. We now know how good Garry is. We also know that he will crawl himself to safety if he needs to. Carlos Prates didn't quite pull the trigger, but he was this close to winning that fight in the 5th round. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to recap every single fight from UFC Kansas City. But before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets. Overall, great night. It was an absolutely great night. My safety parlay hit. Bet Sam's Slam of the Week hit. We gave you 8 units of net profit, a 48% ROI across the board, and we had a couple of massive prop bets hit, including a plus 1,400 prop bet on Joselyne Edwards to win by knockout. I only missed one single bet. I only missed one. Overall, it was a spectacular night. Jacob did miss his underdog lock of the week, but before you guys throw a hissy fit over a free underdog pick, let me remind you that there were 14 fights on this card and 13 favorites won. The only underdog that won on this entire card was Abus Magomedov. That would quite literally have been the only lock of the week that would have won if that's who he picked, and he wasn't going to make Abus the lock of the week. Overall, a phenomenal fight card for premium members. The bets hit. The picks were good. We had a couple of wild props, a bunch of really solid parlays. Overall, an absolute cash cow. And me personally, I think this is my 4th or 5th event in a row, something like that, where I was up money. So I'm happy to do it. I'm happy for it. Every time you get a week off and then you come back, you're always like, oh God, what am I getting myself into? But it felt like an easy card, and once we actually got here, it was a pretty easy card. So great night for the boys. If you're a premium member, you got to see all the stuff that happened. We also had the best DraftKings ownership projections on the planet. This is a very common slide. You'll see this almost every single week. Every single week we put out projections. Every single week we tend to have the best in the world, and this is us compared to Roto Grinders and Osimo and these giant DFS companies, not Billy Bob's Patreon. If you do want to check out all the picks, all the bets, all the tools, literally everything that we have on the website, for $10, you can unlock all of it in one package for an entire month. And here's those fight cards that month will cover. You'll get UFC Des Moines next week. You'll get UFC 315. You'll get the 2 fight nights, the one with Aaron Blanchfield, the one with Michael Morales. All of that, every single pick bet tool, every single thing that we do is available right now on the website for an entire month for $10. Quite literally the greatest value in this space. There's not a single thing that is remotely close to what we offer, let alone at $10 for an entire month. Check it out now, wewantpicks.com. Let's go ahead and talk about these fights. Overall, it's a very good fight card, and it opened pretty wild. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 fights in a row that all ended in the first round. 4 fights in a row. Actually, one of them was the second round, but 4 finishes in the row to start this card off. And to get 2 of those fights as female fight finishes was a wild start. Joselyne Edwards smoked Chelsea Chandler. Finished her in the first. This was the one and only bet that I lost. I had the over 2.5 here. I thought Chelsea's giant ass would be able to absorb the damage. She's huge. She's enormous. She's big as shit. And I thought she would literally be the giant at the top of the beanstalk and just take a beating. I picked Joselyne to win. I had Joselyne in parlays. I was happy with that. I just thought Joselyne would dance around the outside, piece her up, beat her up pretty good, and that'd be the end of it. I did not see Joselyne absolutely smoking her. And she was good everywhere. The grappling looked spectacular. The striking looked spectacular. They both made weight. These are 2 women that have struggled making weight in the past. So overall, this was a very good fight, right? We made a bunch of money off this fight, and this is the fight that Bet Sam's plus 1,400 prop bet hit on. He had Joselyne Edwards to win by KO, TKO, and that's literally exactly what happened here. Wild prop bet, but it hit, so good for him. Joselyne Edwards continues to be good. I continue to pick her. We always get her at decent value. This is the one time where her value wasn't spectacular, but based off of the results, it was, because was she minus 180? She looked like a minus 1,000. So Joselyne Edwards did her thing, looked good, made weight, back in the good graces of the UFC. So curious to see what they do for her next. At this point, you kind of have to cut Chelsea Chandler, right? Like what is she doing? What is she doing? She ran away from Norma Dumont. She beat up that one chick, and then the rest of the fight, she's getting smoked. I don't know what she's doing. She should probably be cut. Then we had a pretty wild fight between Cuamba and Roberto Romero. The highlight here was Timmy Cuamba's speed. Roberto Romero was tough as shit, was landing clean, was just being aggressive. Roberto was moving forward, staying in Timmy's face, not backing down. The problem for Roberto is Timmy is lightning fast in literally everything that he does. His punches were fast as hell. This flying knee out of nowhere, fast as hell. The only real controversy here was that this was an early stoppage. A lot of people felt that way. I saw a ton of it on Twitter. I saw a ton of it in the comment section. I saw a ton of it in our Discord. I actually personally don't think that's the case. I wanted Roberto to win for obvious reasons. I did not think this was an early stoppage. I mean, the dude ate a clean knee, basically fell over limp, and was getting hit, and the ref stopped it. That did not seem absurd to me. This isn't like a few weeks ago where Sean Woodson was standing up, and they stopped it. That's not what this was. This seemed like a fair and square finish to me. If it was a touch early, it was for fighter safety reasons. It wasn't for a referee being a dumbass. And we did have a couple of dumbass referee moments on this card. Dan Murgliata specifically. 2 claps indicate there's only 10 seconds left in a round. That has been the case for a million years. Clunk, clunk. 10 seconds left, so everybody knows. And the 2 of the 3 fights that Dan Murgliata refed, they did the 10-second clap, and he stopped the fighters. He thought it was the... He didn't know the difference between 2 claps and a horn. And he did it twice. To the point when we did it a second time, even the announcing team was like, what's up with Dan? That's the second time he's done that, and he's supposed to ref the main event. I actually fully expected to have a different referee for the main event. That's a big deal. Because both the times that he did it, I should probably wait for the next slide. Let's just do that. Both the times that he did it, something important was happening. One of those times was not right here, but the round before this. At the end of the first round, Jaqueline Amorim is in a similar kind of position, right? She's working on Polyana, trying to slip a choke in, trying to make something happen. There's 10 seconds left, and he just stops them. He literally touches Polyana, and everybody's like, what? What do you want? What, Grandpa? What do you need? And he was like, did you hear the buzzer? And I'm like, no, dickhead. Nobody did. It didn't go off yet. Very bizarre behavior from Dan Murgliata. Dan Murgliata is a very good ref. If you don't know, I've managed professional fighters for a very long time. I have been in the octagon with him as he was the ref when I was the manager who came in after the fight was over. Cool dude. There was one fight where we were in Jersey, Jackson, New Jersey. It was not a huge event, but good money for a guy I was managing. We went in there. Guy I was managing won the fight pretty clear. And as they're standing there, Dan Murgliata's hurting his hand, holding the other guy's hand, leans over to the guy. He's like, you should get this. And then he didn't get it. He raised the other dude's hand, and Dan's like, they robbed you, dude. That was a bad decision. So Dan Murgliata's a cool dude. An honest, straightforward, cool dude. Doesn't know the difference between a clap and a horn. Jaqueline Amorim does know the difference between a takedown and not a takedown because she was running through Polyana Viana. Her takedowns were not the cleanest in the world, but they don't need to be. Each attempt was successful. She got Polyana to the ground. Once it was on the ground, she was so smooth, it was out of control. Just moving from position to position, threatening everywhere. It's insane how good Jaqueline Amorim was on the ground. But we knew this. That's why Jaqueline Amorim was in the safety parlay when she was minus whatever the hell, not the minus 800 that she ballooned up to, but much earlier in the week. My very first breakdown, I broke down this card for the first time 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago in the off week. And I said then, Jaqueline Amorim is my most confident pick on this card. Because the whole narrative coming out of me was Jaqueline Amorim takes her career seriously. She's very good at jiu-jitsu. Her first and only UFC loss was because she didn't have cardio. We have not seen cardio issues out of her since. She made the adjustments. She moves forward. She shoots takedowns. She got power in her hands. And Polyana Viana is just more concerned about likes and clicks on Instagram. And that's exactly what it looked like here. Polyana's tough. She's a gamer. She's not a bum. But she just could not hang on the ground. I mean, literally had 0 seconds of success. So Jaqueline Amorim looked great. I think that's her 4th finish in a row, 3rd finish in a row, something like that. Very curious to see what they do for her next. Polyana will probably get another fight. This is 3 losses in a row. A couple of finishes in there. She tends to be killed. She'll probably get another fight, though. She's attractive. She's got a good following. And she is exciting. She's not like boring and giant like Chelsea Chandler. So I think Polyana will get another fight. I don't think they're going to cut her here. I don't know what they do with Jaqueline next, but she is a rising star for sure. Then we had maybe the best knockout of the night, contender for one of the best knockouts of the year so far. We had Malcolm Wellmaker absolutely smoke Cameron Saaiman. Absolutely smoke him. If you watch the Contender Series, this felt very similar to that. Cameron Saaiman came out, looked decent, was landing kind of clean, having some success, moving forward. Malcolm Wellmaker is a pretty low volume guy. He's a little too cool for his own good. Takes his time, doesn't rush anything. And it actually looked like, and we didn't have a ton of fight here, we had a couple of minutes, but it looked like Cameron Saaiman was getting the better of the exchanges, right? He was the one moving forward, landing clean. And then all of a sudden, Cameron Saaiman overextends, and when he overextends, that arm is out, and Malcolm Wellmaker, just a huge right, boom, right over the top, a counter hook, just absolutely blast Cameron. That dude went bang, just fell over like a statue, getting pushed over during the riots in 2019. Just fell straight over, stiff as a board, fell right over, hit the ground. It was insane how quickly that dude fell. The power out of Malcolm Wellmaker is unbelievable. The power out of him is nuts. And this is the second time in a row that not only did we see that power, but we saw that power in the exact same circumstance. His counter-striking is phenomenal. I think it's okay to say that Malcolm Wellmaker is proven, right? He's not a full-blown proven entity at this point, but Cameron Saaiman had a couple of wins in the UFC, and Malcolm Wellmaker just absolutely smoked him. I will say, at a certain point, the hesitancy, the waiting to counter, that will be an issue for him. And he's going to lose a decision because he's not going to let his hands go. And then that power that we saw here, he's not necessarily going to have that in the third round of a fight. So I would like to see a little more volume out of him, but UFC debut, a full arena, not an Apex, and he showed up, he performed. Malcolm Wellmaker could very well be the real deal. I'm looking forward to what they do with him next. Then we had DaMon Blackshear. DaMon Blackshear was also very hesitant. He won this fight, and it wasn't a bad fight by any means. We were spoiled by the 4 fights before this that were all finishes, all pretty exciting. This was DaMon Blackshear playing the technical outside game while Alatengheili would close the distance and just rip the body, rip the head, rip the body, rip the head. Alateng was the one looking to finish, but DaMon Blackshear was the one doing more work and damage. Does that make sense? DaMon Blackshear was landing cleaner at distance, had a good jab, had nice kicks. He was landing cleaner, but he was not really engaging to finish. He was never coming in like, rah, rah, rah. What Alateng was coming in looking to finish, swinging with everything he had. He also was getting his head snapped back and getting his body lit up. So he was the bloody one. He was the beat up one. DaMon won the decision. He should have won the decision. Seemed pretty fair to me. I think it was 30-27, but I don't know if I quite agreed with that necessarily. Seemed a little closer, but for the most part on this card, every decision made sense. Every decision was logical. No wild stray scorecards. No real controversy outside of Dan Murgliata not knowing the difference between a clap and a buzzer, and Keith, what the hell's his name? Who's the dude withering away from too much Ozempic? Yeah, that's the only other controversy, is that no nonsense Keith Peterson refuses to stop taking Ozempic, and he's just going to be a puddle. He's just going to be a puddle of clothes in a couple of months. By the time we get to UFC 318, Keith Peterson is a puddle of clothes because he wouldn't stop jabbing himself in the stomach with Ozempic. He is withered away to absolutely nothing. DaMon Blackshear looked good, the much better technical fighter. My analysis this entire week on this fight was, we all picked DaMon. There's no shock there. But the analysis was Alateng is a good striker. He's a good grappler, but he never does both. He never mixes up grappling and striking. And that's what we saw here. This was the striking version of Alateng. He tried to go strike for strike. He wasn't faster. He wasn't cleaner. So DaMon was able to win. And at no point did Alateng, who has a lot of takedowns, at no point did he attempt a takedown. And that, I don't know why he can't do both things. This is mixed martial arts, not a kickboxing match, not a wrestling match, but he will only do one at a time. And that's unfortunate for him, because maybe if he was shooting some takedowns and mixing things up, he would have had a little more success, but he did not. This was an interesting situation because this was a split decision. A split decision for Chris Gutierrez, and John Castaneda looked visibly upset. I picked John Castaneda to win. I was wrong. As I mentioned opening up this video, there were 14 fights on this card. 13 favorites won. There was only one single underdog winner on this card, and it wasn't John Castaneda. John Castaneda had some moments of success. He had an old school pick up under the hips, Matt Hughes style double slam the person down. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Matt Hughes. Look at the highlights. Not post getting hit by a train. If you don't, he also got hit by a train, and now he's kind of hard to listen to. But before getting hit by a train, dude was picking people up, running them across the cage, specifically Frank Trigg, and dumping them on their ass. And if you know all the names that I just mentioned, congratulations, you are not a casual. This was an interesting fight because for the most part, it was John Castaneda trying to deal with the range. The first few minutes of this fight, though, was Chris Gutierrez moving forward. Uncharacteristically, Chris Gutierrez was moving forward, was working on John, staying in John's face. And everybody in the commentating booth and all the play-by-play analysts were like, this is a great game plan. If you're going to cut him off and you're going to stay in his face and then you're not going to allow him. That didn't last very long. The rest of this fight was Chris Gutierrez running away. Just running away. Pot shot leg kicks, running away as far as possible. And it worked because Chris Gutierrez was able to maintain the distance. And John Castaneda was not able to get inside, not able to have a ton of success. He got rocked in the first, had a little bit of a takedown, some success, and then rocked, lost that round. Second round, not great. Third round, he had some wrestling success. Like, it was a close enough fight that it wasn't a blowout, but it did not seem like a split. It actually seemed pretty straightforward to me that Chris Gutierrez won this fight. But again, nothing dramatic, nothing crazy. The right people, for the most part, won their fights. You know, John Castaneda, I felt like he was a good UFC fighter, but then they showed his UFC record, and it's like, it is crazy the amount of losses he has. But he is fighting at a high level. He always shows up. He moves forward. He tries to make something happen. Chris Gutierrez, not quite as exciting as John Castaneda, but clearly a very good striker. He can manage range well. The leg kicks are devastating, as everybody repeats over and over and over and over again. But big wrestling hole. He still has wrestling and grappling holes. If John Castaneda wasn't like 4 inches shorter, he might have had a little more success closing the distance and getting the takedowns. But we'll see what happens next for both of these guys. Chris Gutierrez, if they match him up against a good wrestler who's his height, I'm probably going to pick that side. Then we had the other half of the safety parlay. We had Evan Elder and Gage Young. I had Evan Elder as the second half of the safety parlay. And it was funny because to me, that seemed like a no-brainer. And when I broke down that fight, I said, I don't understand why Evan Elder is the odds of this matchup are better than his original opponent. His original opponent was 12-1. His original opponent had some wrestling in him. And Evan Elder was like a 3.5-1 favorite. In this fight, he was a 2-1 favorite, and that came all the way down to like a -160, -170 on some books. And I didn't understand it because I was like, listen, Gage Young is tough, but he's not good at anything that Evan isn't good at. He's not better than Evan at anything. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw Gage have some success, land a few clean strikes here and there, but for the most part, Evan was better everywhere. He hit a little harder. He was a little faster. He was a little cleaner. The leg kicks were there. He avoided any chaotic type power. And that's because they've trained together. Evan's a little more experienced. Evan's been fighting at a higher level, and he knew what to expect, and he expected it, and he did it all well. Very straight. This was a very straightforward fight. At no point was I nervous. Usually when the safety parlay is happening, I'm nervous. I don't want to watch the fight. There's too much pressure. For one stupid bet, there's too much pressure. Tens of thousands of people see that safety parlay, waiting for it to miss if you hate me, waiting for it to hit if you love me, if you tailed. There's just so much freaking pressure on that one single parlay. So sometimes I hate watching those fights because I'm nervous. No point was I nervous here. Evan won the fight, top to bottom, start to finish. Couple of exchanges, you're like, ugh, and then it's like, oh, all right, Evan's fine. Evan's a good fighter. Gage stepped up on short notice, was decent. He's technically 0-2 in the UFC universe. Contender Series lost here. Evan Elder's a tough outing, short notice UFC debut at home. I'm sure the emotions were running wild. We'll see. They'll give him another fight, obviously. The UFC always does that when you step up on short notice as a favor. We'll see what they do next for him. Evan Elder's interesting. Maybe he runs it back. I think Nazim Sadikov is booked on the Maki card, but he beat Nazim, had that little cut, got stopped. Evan Elder's a good fighter. I'm curious what they do for him next because he's sneaky. What I will say, though, is the Evan Elder who fought Nazim was better than this version. This version didn't quite throw as many combinations as he normally does. It seemed more one punch at a time. Now, that could be because there was a personal relationship between these two, so he's not trying to rip his head off and he wasn't trying to go crazy, just trying to do enough to win. We'll see, but both of these guys looked pretty good. Evan looked like the more experienced, better fighter as we expected. Guage, we'll see what happens and what his next matchup will be. Then we had two of the worst fighters on the roster. I honestly, this being the featured prelim makes sense from an entertainment standpoint. I saw people complaining, how is that the featured prelim? There's better fighters. The featured prelim is just the fight to get you excited for the main card. That's what it is. That's what it is. And this did that. This was an exciting fight. It was a fun fight. It was kind of a back and forth fight. It was sloppy. Both these guys suck. They both suck. But it was exciting. There was some back and forth. And I know, like I said Jimmy Flick sucks at fighting the other day. And somebody's like, how could you ever say that? He would beat your ass. Buddy, no, he wouldn't. Jimmy Flick fights at 125 pounds. And you saw in this fight, he doesn't, if there is a punch within 100 yards of him, he just shells up like that. I am 6'3", 260. I have wrestled my entire life. I have done jiu-jitsu for 25 years. I have been doing all sorts of combat sports. There's no fucking world where Jimmy Flick manhandles me. It doesn't exist. And I'm not being a dick. I mean, I guess I am being a dick. But point being, just because somebody is on the UFC roster doesn't mean they're a good fighter. It means they're tough as fuck. It means they have guts. It means they have had enough success to get to that level. It means that they have made it to the top of their craft at their specific weight class under whatever circumstances, but doesn't mean they're good. Jimmy Flick is not a good mixed martial artist. Jimmy Flick is a very good grappler. If we were anywhere near the same size and it was a grappling competition, he probably smokes me, right? But in a fist fight, with a huge size discrepancy, you don't even need a size discrepancy to beat Jimmy Flick. All you need is a decent takedown defense and hands. I was shocked to see him just shell up and clam up and just complete like, oh God, please no. There's punches. It's like he's never, you would think that he was like a jiu-jitsu phenom and they just threw him into an octagon. Like, all right, buddy, you're so good at jiu-jitsu, you'll be fine here. Good luck. And it just like the terror in his eyes when punches come his way are crazy. And it's easy to say, oh, Matt Schnell won. He beat him up. Dude, Matt Schnell was losing that. You could argue Matt Schnell won this or lost this fight because Jimmy Flick clearly won the first round. The second round, he won the majority of it. He won 3.5 minutes of a 5-minute round. And then Matt Schnell ended up on top. Landed some punches. Jimmy Flick weasels his way out, ends up on Matt Schnell's back. And it really just came down to, as you people love pointing out, grappling doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is there a paper cut? Did somebody throw punches? And yeah, for a minute and a half, there was a little bit of a paper cut, and Matt Schnell threw some punches. So the second round went to Matt Schnell. If this was 10 years ago, that second round would have gone to Jimmy Flick. But either way, the right guy won this fight because come the third round, Jimmy Flick was 100% done, and Matt Schnell was just getting better, improving, turning it on, moving forward, trying to win this fight. So the right person won in Matt Schnell, but it wasn't looking good for a while, and it's like, congrats, you beat Matt Schnell. Then we had in the main card opener, Ikram Aliskerov and Andre Muniz. The caption here is jacked but sucks. That's about Andre Muniz. Because we all picked Ikram. I don't know anybody who picked Andre. We all picked Ikram. I had Ikram in a 3-leg parlay that if you want to see every single bet and how well we did in the bets, just go back to the beginning of this video where I cover all of that. I had him in a 3-leg parlay. And when they were walking to the octagon and Andre Muniz comes walking down. He's not a small guy. He's big. He's jacked. It's like, God damn. Oh, boy. Okay. All right. Little nerve-wracking. But then he just doesn't do much. He doesn't do much. He had a spinning back kick attempt, I believe, at one point. Throws every now and then. But his takedowns are not good enough to make anything happen. He attempted one. Didn't matter. His striking is not good enough to get you worried about anything coming his way. So you have a guy who's very good when it's on the ground. He's not amazing at getting it there. Obviously, in his last fight, he had 11 takedowns, but those circumstances were weird. And he's not good enough at striking to really get you worried about anything else. So you have a guy who's not dangerous on the feet, is dangerous on the ground, can't really force a fight there. And he had Ikram. Ikram's not amazing, but Ikram is a very good wrestler. We've only seen it defensively in the UFC, but I promise you, he's a very good wrestler who's got decent hands. And that matchup will smoke Andre Muniz 100 out of 100 times. And that's what we saw here. Ikram redeemed himself. He lost to Robert Whittaker on short notice when they flew him to the other side of planet Earth on short notice. But he came back here, smoked Andre. And Andre is going to continue to do this, right? He will beat the mid to low tier fighters. His last fight, smoked the dude. Couple fights before that, smoked a couple people. But then he's losing to Ikram. Paul Craig. Paul Craig's not amazing, but he's good at all the things Andre's good at, but tougher. Brendan Allen. So he's going to be losing to these top 15 guys, but he'll beat, 25 and below. And that's probably just where Andre will be for a little bit. They'll bring him out. They'll use him to be showboated on against young prospects, and maybe they'll see how he's doing against some old vets and see where they stand. But Ikram called for somebody in the top 10. I don't think that's the right move. Get another win or two. Don't rush it. The problem with the UFC and the way that this all works, once you jump that high in the rankings, once you fight somebody that high up, you end up fighting that caliber of person for a long time. And it's a problem. Look at Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg is a perfect example. Got a couple of wins. He beat Matt Schnell and earned a title shot. Loses the title shot. A lot of people think it was close. I don't think it was that close, but fine. Loses in a title fight. And since then, it has been a downward death spiral of suck. And that's because he earned a title shot way too soon after not doing enough. But once you fight for a world title, once you fight somebody in the top 5, in the top 10, you are stuck fighting only people at that level. So Ikram, I don't think he should jump that high up yet. Get another win or two. There's no rush. Get another win or two. See where you actually stand. Because you could always work your way up. It's very hard to work your way back down without getting cut. He's at 185 pounds. If they gave him Caio Borralho, that's a lot. That's like too much, too soon kind of fight. So I would not rush it if I were him. Get a couple clean wins like this. This money cashes in your bank account the same as a top 10 opponent money does. Get a couple clean wins. Don't rush anything. Then we had the second best knockout of the night. You could say this was better than the Malcolm Wellmaker knockout. What I will say is the pure knockout part of it, the Wellmaker one was out of nowhere. Literally out of nowhere, which made it shocking. There was no blood. There was no swelling. It was early in the fight. Just boom, bang, done. This one was more like, oh my God. But it wasn't necessarily out of nowhere. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments which knockout you think was better, Randy Brown's or Malcolm Wellmaker's. Great. The fact that we have two to even debate on is spectacular. That's how good this fight card was, and that's how good this knockout was. Couple of things happened in this fight. In the first round, Randy Brown, looks enormous, and I know he's 6'3", but he's a jacked 6'3". He's not a lanky 6'3". This is the same weight class of Ian Garry and Carlos Prates, and both of them are like kind of scrawny. And they're both listed at 6'3", and they're both kind of scrawny. Randy Brown is way bigger, not scrawny at all. And he looked huge, and he looked good. He was landing clean. He was pumping a jab. He was using that range. Nicolas Dalby was struggling. At one point, Randy lands a beautiful combination that just absolutely destroys Nicolas Dalby's nose. What should be here was over here. It looked like Rich Franklin when he fought Anderson Silva, another Old school reference for the non-casuals. His nose was bad. But because Nicolas Dalby is a psychopath and nothing matters, it was a minute later, he bombs, drops Randy Brown, has him in a world of hurt, ends up on top doing all sorts of shit, time's up. Nicolas Dalby goes to his corner. The cut man cracks the nose back where it belongs. They clean him up a little bit. And then the second round, Randy Brown was awesome because he wasn't worried. He wasn't worried about the power. He felt the power. The power negatively affected him. He got dropped. He had issues, but it didn't matter, right? It did not matter. So what he did, he came out, moved forward, wasn't afraid of a thing, got his hands going, ended up in a firefight with Nicolas Dalby, which was not a great decision. Randy Brown had been knocked down just a few minutes prior, but he still was biting on the mouthpiece, bombing away, landed clean, knocks out Nicolas Dalby. A person who had never been knocked out before, 100% unconscious, fell over, like 100% unconscious, no support whatsoever, just face first into the mat laying there. Crazy knockout. The come from behind, I don't want to say come from behind because Randy was winning, but you get it. Like, he was in trouble. So that aspect was why, like, this was a phenomenal fight. And this one was like, God, dude, this is a great fight card. And this was a great fight. Randy Brown, I agree with everything he said in his post-fight speech. He said, I didn't lose my last fight. He didn't. He didn't lose his last fight. That was a bad decision. And then he won this one. Other than the Jack Della Maddalena loss, Randy Brown has looked very good. So I am curious. They should give him, honestly, he called for a top 10 opponent, and I know I just did that rant about top 10. He should get Carlos Prates. I want to see Randy Brown versus Carlos Prates. And I think that's a great matchup because if Carlos Prates smokes Randy, great. Carlos is right back in the conversation, and Randy Brown, who cares, right? You just lost to a dude that, whatever. But if Randy beats Carlos Prates, we got some fresh blood. From some fresh blood at the top of the division. And now Randy's on a nice little streak. So I think that's a great matchup. I'll talk about that. I'll probably do a bad takes video with Josh Thompson about matchups to make next. We'll have that conversation. Randy Brown looked absolutely unbelievable. Nicolas Dalby's 40 years old. He's 40. Just got knocked out for the first time ever. And you guys know how this works. It is not a gradual decline. It is a fall off the cliff. He had never been knocked out before. Was just knocked out. This is the type of situation where he's going to get knocked out in his next 5 fights. And then we had the one and only underdog win on this card. So again, before you guys go railroading Jacob for not picking the underdog on the card, remember, there are 14 fights on this card. Only one underdog won, and it was a Boost. Jacob wasn't going to pick a Boost as his lock of the week. He wasn't going to pick a guy that gassed, that barely beat Bruno Ferreira in his last fight against Michel Pereira, who up until this fight looked unbelievable. This was a bizarre fight. I'm not even going to sit here and say, oh, Obus looked good. Obus did this to win the fight. This was entirely about what Michel did not do. Michel Pereira didn't do shit. He did nothing. He did absolutely nothing this entire fight. Literally nothing. He landed 7 significant strikes in the first round, and it's not because of the smothering pressure of Abus Magomedov. It's because Michel Pereira is just a shell of himself in this fight. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it's marital issues. He's having some trouble at home. He's been accused of stepping out. The wife made a whole scene on the internet about it. So maybe he's dealing with that. Maybe that's been in his head. Didn't get a great camp in because he's worried about a divorce back home. Maybe he lost, I don't want to say on purpose, maybe he lost so he doesn't have to give up half of his money to somebody that is trying to take all of his money. I don't know, but that wasn't Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira is a guy who is known for doing too much. Hey, dude, stop doing random fucking flips. Try that. Hey, dude, stop going bananas in the first 3 minutes so you can fight longer. Nobody has ever said, do a little more until this fight. He didn't do anything. It was wildly out of character. Abus did what Abus does. He looks good early. That's what he does. He just happened to look good for a longer period of time because he was fighting a punching bag. So I don't know what Michel Pereira's deal was. I don't know if he's ever going to be himself again, if this is temporary, just a bad camp. That's the wild part about MMA. It's not a team sport. Your entire career comes down to 15 minutes at a time. All of us, me, you, everybody else watching can have a bad day. We can have a bad day, phone it in a little bit, right? Not be entirely on, and we'll be fine. You're not going to get fired for one bad day unless you're like a crane operator and you drop some shit on somebody's head, but you get the point. You could be a crane operator that's kind of slowly moving shit around, not quite swinging giant pieces of metal as quickly as you should. But if you're a professional fighter and you stepped in that cage and you just have a bad 15 minutes, you lose. You lose. You only get paid half of your money because the pay structure is you get half to walk in the cage, the other half if you win. You only get half of your money. Then people talk shit about you, like me right now. And things just don't go well for you until you fight again, and maybe you win and everybody forgets how bad you just were. It's a wild sport. Zero forgiveness whatsoever. Maybe his wife forgives him and he'll show up a little better next time. And then we had the featured fight of the evening. We had David Onama versus Giga Chikadze, and the caption here is thank God for wrestling. And that's because David Onama needed wrestling. He was going to lose this fight until he started shooting takedowns. And that's fine. This is mixed martial arts. You go back a few minutes, I was talking about how Alatengheili didn't attempt any takedowns and should have. So I saw a lot of hate and criticism about David Onama online. A lot of people like, this is ridiculous. He was just hugging. Dude, he was doing what he could do to win the fight. This is mixed martial arts, and the people who want to turn it only into kickboxing are the people ruining the sport, complaining about every little tiny fucking thing. It is mixed martial arts. David Onama got hit a few times on the feet, was a little bit rocked, said, I need to recover. Let me shoot a take. So he shot a takedown. And on the ground, he tried to work, but he's fighting another high-level fighter. It's not like Giga's just going to lay there and be like, hit me. He's not Ian Garry. We'll get to that. So I don't have a problem with Ian Garry shooting takedowns to try to win this fight. And I think he did win this fight. By no means did I think this was a bad decision. When people are up in arms about the wrestling decisions, it is typically coming with some action on the other side. Meaning, Giga did have David Onama rocked a little bit, but that was in the first round. David Onama did not win the first round. Towards the end of the first round, shoots a takedown, gets it. Has good success there. And that's when he, in his head, is like, yep, that's how I'm going to have to beat him. Shoot takedowns. So then he took it from there. If you wanted to say this is a bad decision, how? If you want to scream and yell, damage is the only thing that matters. Where's the damage on Onama? Show me the damage on Onama. Show me the damage that he took. Show me the damage that Giga did that all those takedowns and all that control don't negate. The damage was so bad, the takedowns and the control don't negate it. That's the problem with people. You're not logical enough to separate situations. You get some dumb fucking narrative stuck in your head and you run with it in every situation, no matter what. You don't ever look at it objectively and be like, yeah, well, this was different. This was different because Giga didn't really do much either. He had Onama rocked in the first a little bit. Onama recovered, got a takedown, but we'll give Giga the first, or whatever round that was. We'll give Giga that round. That's fine. Yes, he had him rocked a little bit. Clear. Giga didn't have any more success. That was it. That was the success. And that's because once David started shooting, big clear difference on the ground. Once David started working the hands, also combined to takedowns, the hands started to look good too. So David Onama won this fight, seemed pretty clear. He was not the better striker for the most part, so he needed to use other tools in a mixed martial arts fight. Seemed fair to me. I think Giga's biggest issue is the layoffs. Because Giga looked good early. He looked good. He looked clean. The typical kicking that he does. He actually had a Wonder Boy stance for a while, but Giga looked good. His hands look sharper than usual. It's typically kicks, but the hands look sharp too. Everything except the wrestling, honestly. So David Onama's another guy who called for a top 10 opponent. You just got rocked by a dude who fights once a year. Maybe not. I love that he worked in the wrestling. We see the evolution. We see the addition of other skills. His last fight, he shot a takedown because he also got rocked in that fight. That was his first takedown in 2 years. And now in this fight, got rocked, shot a takedown. So at least he has the wherewithal to use those tools when he needs to. I don't know who he's going to fight next, but good takedown defense and heavy hands could be a problem for Onama. Then we had the retirement fight of Anthony Smith, and that was a shitload of blood. And the crazy part is, you can see this picture, you can see how much blood. The crazy part is, it wasn't that bad of a cut. It just bled like a mother. Like, it bled bad. This was an unfortunate situation because it was Anthony Smith's retirement fight. First of all, they announced it. Bruce Buffer announced that this was Anthony Smith's retirement fight. And when it happened, my buddy Bo, giant ass Bo from the vlog, he was at the house. He was watching the fights with me. And I was like, have you ever heard that get announced? Have you ever heard Bruce Buffer say this was somebody's last fight or this is their retirement fight? I don't think I ever have. And he was like, I don't think I have either. You guys let me know. I don't know if I've ever heard Bruce Buffer say this. Like, I was there in person when Robbie Lawler knocked out Nico Price. And I don't think Bruce Buffer said then, Robbie Lawler's retirement fight, this is his last fight, whatever the words. I think he just announced it regular. So I was surprised to hear that for Anthony Smith. But Anthony Smith came out and he just got his ass kicked. And he didn't even try. He did what this last 3-year version of Anthony Smith is. Instead of being a technical, let me hang on the outside, my opponent has never won a fight out of the first round, ever, never, ever, ever. So let me just stay on the outside, see if I can slow him down, wear him out, chop the legs a little bit, get him to the second round, and let's just see what the hell happens. Instead of doing that, he just bit down. When he did throw, was just rah, rah, just huge punches. So Zhang Ming Yang just picked him apart. Lots of elbows close. Just lots of work. Once he got that cut, it's like here-ish on the forehead. Once he got that cut and the blood was dripping down a little bit, Anthony was like, I'm done. The blood would be in his eyes. He'd mess with it a little bit. On the ground, he was just covering up enough. Like, all right, come on, ref. I'm covering. Just stop this already. So, and the ref stopped. Jason Herzog, I believe it was, gave him enough time. Like, it's his retirement fight. I know he's tough. I've watched his teeth come out of his mouth and he picked them up. I know he's tough. All right, that's enough. Enough is enough. So, Anthony Smith went out. It's funny because Laura Sanko tried to make it sound like it was cool. She was like, he can't go out on a win, but he's going to go out covered up in blood, and that's a pretty cool way to go out. Yeah, if it was a war, like if this was Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker, and you're on the losing side of that, yeah, that's a cool way to go. Yeah, you couldn't win, but it was a war. No, this was Anthony Smith got his ass kicked, and I don't want to say he quit or gave up, but he definitely was like, all right, good, just stop it. Just stop the fight already. Let's be done with this. And he said in the after, what I will say is Anthony Smith's microphone speech, I worded that very oddly, his retirement speech, if you will, was the most logical, pragmatic, normal retirement speech I've ever heard in my entire life. And good for him. That's why he's a good desk analyst. He literally was like, 5 years ago, I probably could have won this fight. But here I am, older, slower. I just don't have it. Like unbelievably realistic and self-aware. And that's awesome. I like Anthony Smith. It's hard not to. Why wouldn't you like Anthony Smith? Prior to these last couple of years when he started to go a little bananas, he was an exciting fighter. The fact that he did not take the DQ against John Jones, a financial decision he may regret for the rest of his life because he would have been the world champion if he did. But, it says a lot about who he is as a person. Seems like a phenomenal guy, family man. Seems to be the guy who tries to do the right thing and makes the right decisions and isn't just like a weasel, cheap shot, cash grab kind of guy. Good for him. This is also funny how the UFC treats their vets. So Anthony Smith is a guy on the inside, right? He works the analyst desk. So he's a corporate guy. He's fought anybody they've ever wanted in the fight. He's been in some all-time wars. They've leaned on him a couple times to help out when they needed some help. And they were like, I'll let you retire at home, but you're going to get fucked up. We're going to give you this young kid that we're pushing. So you're going to be at home in an arena that matters to you, in an area of the country that matters to you. It will 100% be your last fight ever. We'll give you a montage, but we're also going to give you somebody that will beat your face in. We're not going to give you another vet. We're not going to give you somebody chinny. We're going to give you a young guy that is finishing everybody, and you're about to get fucking smoked. And it's just so crazy that the UFC doesn't let anybody go out easy. Nobody. The only reason Khabib went out easy is because he retired way too soon. And the only reason Robbie Lawler went out on a win is because he just happened to knock out Nico Price, and he's Robbie fucking Lawler. Nico Price was a 3-1 favorite in that fight. So the UFC was not doing Robbie any favors there. And they didn't do Anthony Smith any favors here, which is always just so, there is no easy way out of this sport. It's like a gang, blood in, blood out. It's crazy. And then we had the main event of the evening. Listen, I picked Carlos Prates. What I'm not going to do is sit here and say, oh, Prates should have won. None of that bullshit. What I'm going to say is Carlos Prates fought like an absolute fucking idiot this entire fight. He did nothing. He did nothing. Everything I said about Michel Pereira minus the wife stuff, you could say about Carlos Prates. He didn't let his hands go. Now, some of that was because of how good Ian looked. Ian Garry looked very good. His hands looked great. Ian Garry's ability to kick your head while only standing 2 feet in front of you at the end of a combination's crazy. Crazy. He was just firing up the leg kicks like it was, or the head kicks like it was no big deal. That was unbelievable to watch. Ian Garry's hands look clean. His hands look sharp. When he threw that nice combination and he broke the guard of Prates with an uppercut, looked unbelievable. Prates' head snapped back. So while Ian was clearly the better, cleaner, more technical fighter, Carlos did nothing. Like, it's hard to look at what Carlos didn't do and say, oh, this is like, you know, Ian's the better fighter. I'm going to assume Ian's the better fighter because he won this fight and he was doing whatever he wanted to, but Carlos did nothing. It's not as if Carlos was trying and failing. He did nothing. He didn't let his hands go. It was just empty forward pressure, shell up. Empty forward pressure, shell up. Couple of highlights. Carlos's takedown defense looked great. Anytime Ian shot a single, dude, he would get tight singles on the chest, tight as hell, and Carlos would just like check for oil, boom, sprawl, he's out. Until the 5th round. 4th round, Carlos picked it up a little bit. And this is a guy who you all said he smokes a pack a day, his cardio, how could he? Cardio seemed fine. He was just gun shy. And maybe he was gun shy because he was worried about his cardio, but his cardio seemed fine. Ian was the one who looked tired at the end of the fight, not Carlos. 5th round comes. They end up in a scramble. Ian shoots a takedown. Carlos ends up on top. There's like a minute and a half left. Carlos rains down a couple of strikes, and one of them fucked Ian Garry up. Literally fucked Ian Garry up. Carlos lands a few more, and it's getting dicey. This still image, it was a video, you can see it was a video on Twitter, and I tried to do a still image of it. This is Ian crawling away on all fours, crawling like a baby to get to the cage for safety. Crawling away. For dear life, crawling away. And Carlos chases him, but Carlos is fucking... They end up in like a situation where Carlos like half has his back, and I promise you, I am 100% certain if Carlos just did a couple... That looks like I'm jerking off in it. No, we're going to... Okay, there's no motion I can do that doesn't make it look like I'm jerking myself or something else off. So let's just imagine the hammer fist motion. If Carlos did a couple of hammer, give him 5 hammer fists, just rah, 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 rah. I promise you Dan Miragliotta was going to stop that fight. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. Carlos Prates was a hammer fist away from having that fight stop. That's all he needed to do. Dan was all over it like, oh shit, oh shit. Everybody could tell that Ian was in a bad way, literally crawling to safety. And this exchange lasted for a good amount of time. The problem is Carlos did not pull the trigger. Just like one shot, nothing. If he just went off and let his hands go the exact same way Zhang did to Anthony Smith. It was like, elbow, elbow, elbow. You have to stop it. You have to. Like, all right, these are unanswered shots. You have to stop. If he did what Zhang did, just went nuts, they would have stopped this fight, and Carlos Prates would have had a 5th round finish. It would have looked like Izzy Poatan won. That's what it would have looked like. Poatan lost first 4 rounds. A little bit of trouble here and there. 5th round comes, gets the stoppage against the cage. It would have looked exactly like that. But he didn't do it. And honestly, while it would have been exciting if he did, I was fine with it. We all made a ton of money. We didn't need him to win to make the money. We all made a ton of money. I got a refund on the bet because I wasn't going to bet Carlos Prates outright. Not as untested as he was. So I did inside the distance decision, no action, and went to the decision. I got a full refund. And I'm almost glad it played out this way. I would have preferred if Ian knocked out, or if Carlos knocked out Ian early, great, spectacular. But if we got to the 5th round in a fight where you did almost fucking nothing the whole time and then you pull it out by some miracle, that's actually annoying. Ian was the better fighter. Ian deserved to win. It's better for the division at this point if Ian wins because he looked very, very good. He looked very good. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening. Ian did say he's the backup for the Bilal Muhammad Jack Della Maddalena fight in case something happens there. He has a pretty decent gash on his face. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I want that fight to go the way it's supposed to go, and I want Ian to get a normal scheduled matchup. I don't want any shenanigan backup bullshit, no short notice, nothing like that. Overall, this is a spectacular fight card, guys. Check out a Bad Takes video. Myself, Josh Thompson, we film videos on this channel called Bad Takes. We're going to do a matchups to make next Bad Take that'll probably be released maybe Sunday night, if not Monday morning. Check that out. And make sure you go to the website. You want a couple of bucks? We'll give you a couple bucks. We have affiliate deals with a bunch of different sports books. Go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of those sports books using our links. They're going to pay us some commission. We'll slice off a few bucks, 50 to be exact, and we'll give those right back to you. Also on the website, we have picks, bets, tools, everything you could ever need heading into a fight week. We opened up this card with how well the bets did. We opened up with having the best DraftKings ownership projections on the planet. If you just like to do your own research, we have a new tool called the Tape Index. The Tape Index is a full index. Every fighter on that card, every fighter on future cards, it's built out through UFC 316. Every single fighter on every single one of those cards, you get their full record, how that fight went, and if it has a little red play button, that means we have the tape. You click the button, video pops up, you can watch that fight. Take your own notes, do your own research. We have a tool called the DraftKings Optimizer. It will build DraftKings fantasy lineups for you. And we even have a brand new beginner mode that we developed from scratch to help new people understand how to use an optimizer and to help new people play DraftKings fantasy. We have a tool called the Fight Simulator. This takes every fight on the card and it simulates them 100,000 times using historical striking stats, historical grappling stats, and then it gives you those outputs. You can use those outputs to place bets. You can use those outputs for DraftKings fantasy. Every single thing I just mentioned, 50 other things I didn't mention, all available right now on the website. It is $10 for an entire month, and that month will give you access to every single fight card. You're going to get UFC DaMon. You're going to get UFC 315. You're going to get the Michael Morales, I'm looking right at you. What the hell's your name? Gilbert Burns fight card. You're going to get the one after that with Aaron Blanchfield. Every single one of those fight cards, you'll have full access to every single thing that we do. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. Thanks for the watch, guys. I appreciate it. I stay up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, depending on the week, to film these for you. I appreciate the watch. These are getting more and more popular, so thank you, genuinely. Like, subscribe, do all those things. I appreciate you being here.